Oh, Prince.
Welcome to another great one of these episodes, Inside Nobody. I'm Barry O'Reilly, Chief Incubation Officer at Nobody Studios. And this series has really been a chance to dive in and get to meet other nobodies inside the studio to understand how we work, what inspired them to join the journey, and what their experience have been so far. It's been fantastic to spend time with our Chief Nobody, Mark McNally. You've met other people like Donald Farmer, and you'll see more and more of these shows coming online. But today we're joined by the master of ceremonies himself, the guy who throws parties like nobody knows else how to, and have a lot of fun time doing it. So if you want to say hello quickly, this is our guy, our Chief Marketing Officer, Kyle Kane. How you doing, Kyle?
Doing well. Just actually landed from visiting Nobody Studios headquarters in California. So I haven't unpacked yet, but I'm too excited. I wanted to make sure to have this opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, well, look, it's great to have you on. You're one person who's definitely been hustling, traveling all over the country, connecting with people all over the globe. So please, give us a little bit of an insight here. Tell us a little bit about your own entrepreneurial journey. You've obviously started a number of agencies. You have a very unique background. So for folks, share a little bit about your own personal story.
Sure, happy to. Well, how far back should we take it? Grew up in the music industry. My first job was at 15 years old as the A&R in a record label called TBT Records, which was the largest independent label at the time. Just worked my way up through there. And fast forward, to VP of A&R. So my role was largely to find talent, source talent, figure out how to market them, how to tell their story in a public forum. And very quickly, we saw that brands were feeling the cost of a lot of this creative content that we were hoping to produce. And so, long story short, I was challenged by the system of being able to get the artists the resources that they needed to develop. And so I left Universal. I started my own company, and we really focused on original content. We wanted to double down on experiences and content, folks that are really resonating with the synapses that start to fire when you see a brand and you're having a good time. We wanted to really take advantage of that consumer psychology. So we came out of the box and produced some content. We won a couple Emmys, and then we saw brand dollars flow out of traditional product placement as brands really started to double down on live event experiences. And so we started producing live events in 2014, and for about 6 years or so, we produced many major pop culture conventions and festivals, events around the Grammys and the Super Bowl. And in 2019, we decided to stop producing work for hire and really start building our own IP. And what a year to make that decision. 2019, we raised about $20 for live events. And in 2020, surprise, no more live events. So that was certainly a testament of resilience and entrepreneurial spirit and fortitude. And that was actually my entree into Nobody Studios.
Yeah, no, it's great. So much of this journey, I feel like, is about timing. I think about when Ray starting Ovations was all about the pandemic was a Kickstarter for him to sort of take his business of in-person to online and launch Ovations, and you launching events businesses and then bringing them here to Nobody and organizing great events with us, right? Like most recently down at Art Basel Festival in Miami, right? So it's always fascinating how these stories just sort of a lot of it is about timing when things happen. It's always kind of fun to sort of riff on those ideas.
That's right.
So for your own self now, like you've come into Nobody Studios as Chief Marketing Officer. We've got a pretty bold ambition to build 100 companies over the next 5 years. That means there's 100 companies as well as a studio that we need to build a brand around, that we need to build identity around, build content, and as you say, intellectual property around. So, what for you, like what's been some of those interesting aspects that you've discovered? First of all, discovered Nobody, what brought you down that path? And as you've sort of dug deeper into the business, the things that have started to emerge for you.
Yeah, well, I'll take the last part of that question first. So, sort of a natural transition to my last response is, at the point of 2019 when we raised $20 million and we lost $19 million.
999 cents.
Yes, exactly. And so pivoting that and figuring out how to adapt the IP that we invested in, how to bring it into Web3, into NFTs, and into new digital streams of revenue. Through that process, of course, raising money from a lot of people. The event particularly that brought me to Nobody Studios was an event we produced in 2019 in December 14th and 15th of 2019. It's etched into my brain. I was at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City, which is, one of the most premier venues on the planet. And we produced an event called the Mother's Ball, which was a celebration of every woman's capacity to advocate for themselves and their families and their communities. And we had 3 days of panels, and we had 3 Grammy Award-winning performances. We had amazing vendors. We gave away $1 million to women-owned businesses to help support the community. It was a fantastic event. But like most first-year events, it's a loss leader for a big second year. So December 14th and 15th, 2 million spent, amazing event, awesome content. 2 months later, surprise, right? Live events are dead. So through that process, one of the investors, and actually the person that we sculpted this event around, was our director of business development at Nobody Studios. His name's Jason Coker. His wife, Lola Milani, who is a maternal photographer, but she does more than take pictures. She helps women to see their beauty, even times when they might be stretched out and, in different ways. So you learn a lot about people when you make mistakes, right? And you learn a lot about people through failure. And Jason and I worked our butts off to pay back every dollar that we raised. And so through that process, we built just an amazing friendship of resilience. And so as Jason introduced me to Mark, and I started to get a feel for the studio and where I might be able to fit in, I was amazed. I mean, my background in music and entertainment, I've been blessed to have been a part of many successful groups. And the group that Nobody Studios has assembled is by far the most incredible I've seen. I mean, it's very challenging to get a bunch of people who have found success in their lives, get them together. They all are coming with different conditioning, different scar tissue, different organizational styles, right? How do you bring all that together, right? I mean, Mark uses WhatsApp and we use Slack and he uses text messages. Right? How do you bring all that together? We've got, thousands of nobodies around the world, hundreds of people working on a project at any given time, dozens of people communicating on a daily basis, multiple touch points a day. So the fact that all these people have come together and decided to shed all the scar tissue, shed the PTSD, shed the organizational systems that they were used to, and jump into this new uncomfortable space together. I have not seen this ever before in my career. So that to me was the first sign that something special is happening here. And I needed to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, and then you've made a huge contribution since being here. There's no doubt about it. And like, it's always great to hear like people's why, what inspired them to get involved in the studio, what piqued their curiosity, And I think this point you make about such a broad depth of talent, people from different backgrounds, different stories, different experiences, but pulling that all together to create something that's bigger than all of us. And it's funny. It's one of the reasons this being called Nobody Studios is for a reason, right? It's like no one individual is going to make us succeed, or they're going to and this is also kind of from a branding point of view, like it's one of these ones that can sort of shock people a little bit, right? Like even when we're out there saying, yeah, I'm a nobody, for some people that's kind of like disarming, and sometimes it's almost offensive. So from someone who's like helping people understand our brand and what we're about, what are your thoughts about explaining like being a nobody and what that actually means?
Yeah, well, that's the testament to exactly what I mentioned about this team coming together. And, and you're right. It is sort of an ego check, to consider yourself a nobody. Many of some of your previous guests have said, I worked my whole life to become a somebody only to wind up being a nobody. Right. So it's interesting. And the way that we go about sort of explaining the process is really by example. I mean, when somebody comes in, when they join a meeting, a round table, or when they sit down and have a chance to talk to any of our leadership team, they really get a sense of what we're about, not necessarily through an explanation or a Webster's dictionary, but just through action. And there's 3 or 4 points that I always discuss when positioning Nobody Studios. And the first one is invest once, own a piece of 100 companies, right? And that's really special. Building an agency, a successful agency, I felt like, always pulled in these various directions, right? We're building 100 companies in 5 years. It's hard enough to build one company in 5 years. Right. And so Nobody Studios is one place where I felt like, okay, I can sprinkle a little brilliance here and a little brilliance there and watch this explode, right? So the fact that we're able to invest one time and own a piece of every company we create, that speaks to the young investors because it's very easy to understand. It also speaks to the seasoned and savvy investors because they're always looking for diversification, right?
Yeah.
The second point that I always make is you're in good company. And that's where we reference all the nobodies that we've attracted to the journey. Executives from, Amazon, Google, Facebook, American Airlines, Skype, Stripe, Volkswagen, and on, right? And if you're a new investor or savvy investor, you're looking for people that have experience, and collectively with 5 billion in IPOs, 9 billion in exits. I mean, that's the kind of place that I feel comfortable putting my money behind. And the third, and I think the most important point, which resonates the most, I think, across the board, is the fact that this is a historical moment, that we're inviting anyone to pull up a seat at the table, regardless of who your dad's last name is, right? If you have a family office behind you, how much money you have in the bank, what is your credit score, how much liquid, are you accredited? No longer that matters. You can still own a piece of the next great company. So that to me is a really exciting message. And that's something that breaks down the walls of somebody's and nobody's. The fact that this is a historical moment, we're inviting everyone to pull us up a seat at the table. And we know that the next great idea, chances are, is not going to come from someone that looks like Warren Buffett, right? Chances are it's going to come, like Mark said, some 12-year-old girl on a couch playing Minecraft in New Delhi. She's the one that's going to come up with the solution to one of the world's problems. But the challenge is that when she turns on the TV, when she looks at where the world's wealth is, she doesn't see herself in that. So that's one of the challenges. And that's where the phrase of nobody really comes into play. Because if you're trying to get a group of people who feel marginalized or who may be vulnerable or at risk, and you're trying to get them to see themselves in a greater light, you can't start off with these big backgrounds and resumes and accomplishments, because all that does is just separate. It increases the gap, right, between the folks who we're trying to bring into the fold and the folks who have the wealth. And so that's sort of where we're concentrating a lot of our effort, is making sure that it is an all-inclusive table, that we've got the savvy investors with 9 billion in exits, and we've got the 19-year-old who just is traveling the world, and they see things in the world that want to be better. They see things that could improve. They have ideas that they want to find their place in the world, but they don't necessarily have a vehicle or a pathway to make that happen. So, that's how we break down the walls of what is a nobody. Is we invite everyone at the table, we show the people that we have around, that we've amassed, and then we give you a chance to own a piece of every single company we create, so that there's no risk in terms of your contribution and how it'll be valued.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous, and it's one of these things, I think, that is very unique and very special about what we're doing. We're giving so many different people an opportunity to be part of this story, to contribute to it. And you can even see here on, when we're doing these live streams, right? Like, people are inspired by that story. Phil Noel here as well, like just somebody who's just like hearing what we're doing, hearing what we're sharing, and inspired by it. So folks like Phil, I hope, you become nobodies too as well. Like, you can by going to republic.com/nobodystudios and being part of this adventure with us. It's a very unique, very special moment that we're trying to create for everybody. So one of the things, Kyle, I think that's really fascinating actually about how we bring people into the studio, we talk about three things, right? We need your talent, we need your influence, and we need your capital. Talent being bringing your skills, your ideas, helping us build these companies. Capital being the chance to actually make some of these investments and actually being an owner in the studio. But influence is one area I think that's really fascinating, as people can have influence in their networks. And this is sort of like a real focus for you at the moment. So can you share a little bit about what does influence mean in the context of Nobody?
Yeah, well, this is an important point. And this is one of the things that Mark and I aligned on really well, Mark being the chief nobody. So what we've proven through my work previous is that you don't need to have a war chest of startup capital to build a successful business. And that's sort of anti the VC model, right? These guys are coming in saying, hey, if you want market share, you got to tap into this and we'll bankroll you, right? And what we're saying is that business today is relational. It's not transactional. And that if we assemble the right people with the right choreography, with the right message in the right order at the right time, that we don't need to invest millions of dollars to bring a company to market and to build some influence. So the influencer marketing piece is critical. And some of the challenges with the influencer marketing piece is that it's very crowded. And so, first of all, the messaging and the content have to differentiate yourself from the noise. But secondly, how do you vet these influencers? How do you make sure that they're leaning in? How do you make sure that you're not, bringing in accounts that go against the integrity, that go against the transparency, people that maybe have boosted posts or have fake accounts or have bots that are auto commenting on their stuff, right? So there's an art and a science to bringing this to market. But both Mark and I and the rest of our team, we firmly believe that if we bring the right influence and the right audience together, that our message will be received to the audience that's waiting for it.
Yeah, no, it's right on. I think it's really interesting about this idea that everybody has influence, right? We all have influence, whether it's with our friends, our close network, our family, our business connections. And, one thing that we found, I think, through the course of this campaign and just in general of Nobody Studios is simply sharing our story, like why we got involved in Nobody, what inspired us to be part of it, brings engagement, right? It brings people to say, that's interesting, tell me more. That's interesting, how can be part of that? And that is a very special thing because they're excited. And you can even see here, we're already getting messages like, if you didn't already work here, you need to, just to be hanging around people like Kyle, right? Because he just brings the energy, as you can see every day, right? And this is sort of the inspiring thing about influence, right? Like sharing your inspiration, sharing your passion inspires people, and they want to be part of that and part of that energy and vision. And even Prince wants to be part of the Nobody's already. We need to get him his t-shirt made and ready to go.
This is actually your chief marketing officer. I'm just a proxy. This is your guy making all the decisions, got all the ideas.
We love it. We love it. And so just for folks then, as they're like looking into Nobody, they're finding out more. They're probably looking at Republic. What would be some advice you'd have for people who are potentially interested in getting involved in Nobody, about how they could start to do that?
Well, you said it. I mean, this train is moving fast. So my suggestion would be to hop on board in any shape or form. So certainly resources, right? We need access to visibility. We need to make sure that our important message is reaching its intended audience. So any resources are welcome. A lot of folks are looking for new tracks, new career tracks, new opportunities to contribute to value, including myself. I felt like only 10% of my value is being tapped in, whereas now I'm maybe 90, right? So I'm excited about that. So talent is the second, is joining the journey in some capacity. But the easiest way to get involved is with capital, is that we have a live crowdfund right now that you can go to republic.com/Nobody Studios. And for as little as $100, you can own a piece of every company we create. I mean, this is something that has never been offered before. So every day, I'm just thrilled to be able to bring this message to folks that really want to start focusing on legacy. They want to start focusing on, what mark they're going to leave on the world. And the work we do while we're here largely determines the legacy that we leave when we're gone. So, being able to have an opportunity to I mean, look, I spend $100 on lunch every day, right? And that's gone, and I never see it again.
New York City.
Right. Listen, and so just the idea of, the pair of sneakers that cost $100 that you grow out of next year, or, that dress that you only wear once because it's only in season for 7 days a year, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I start to take into consideration when I'm talking to folks who I see, they're sitting here with a $300 pair of sunglasses on the table, and they're not worried about scratching that up, but yet, they can't fathom how they could potentially own a piece of the next great company. So that's our challenge. And also the exciting opportunity is for everyone to see themselves as a venture investor. And the best way to do that is to sign up on republic.com/Nobody Studios today and join the journey.
Right on, man. That's it. Bringing people, giving them access and part of this. So we're getting a couple of questions coming in that is always fun to pick up a few of these. So one of them comes in from Min, and he's like, well, your background in the music industry, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how AI could change the way music can be composed, can be brought to the world. I think ChatGPT got an interview, I believe, yesterday in a company. So like there's some fun things happening. Yeah. So what are some of your thoughts on that space and what you're seeing, especially related to music?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I feel uniquely qualified to answer it. I was consulting with the Virgin team when Gorillaz was launched. If you guys don't know, Gorillaz was the first animated band, so there was no humans involved in the touring or in the merchandising, and so AI is sort of like this next step. It's a leap. It's not a step. It's a leap. And I get this question a lot. I think the best opportunity for AI is in the publishing space, because we've got so many songwriters and producers that contribute to songs, and because the songs are not coded right, and because our publishing system is built on this antiquated and archaic backbone, that AI can really transform the way that composers are paid out. In terms of the production of the music, that becomes the biggest challenge, is because who owns that publishing? And it's the same in art, and any other kind of music. There's some historic landmark cases now in the copyright law about AI. Is the person putting in the keywords that creates the painting? Does he have some sort of ownership over the intellectual property? And how do you assign trademark and copyright law to a robot? So these are some of the challenges. And I'd be happy to talk about that offline. I can talk for hours on that. So I don't want to take up the rest
No,
of
I
it.
love this as well. As a struggling artist and author, like always trying to track down a little bit of royalty fees from to buy myself a beer every week. It resonates a lot in terms of just the creative aspect of this and tracking of intellectual property. It's such a fascinating space, and yeah, policy can never move as fast as technology, but it's nice to hear you identify that like it is a creative process. And I think in a lot of these systems previously, the artist is always the one who feels the most pain and the least reward. And any way we can flip that system, I think we're all down for that. Is fantastic.
Yeah, do I hear a new co in the making?
I think we just launched one. That's the joy of a Nobody Studios. Right. It's like, you got a problem, go build a company about it.
Yeah, let's 72 more to go. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. So in closing then, Kyle, any final thoughts you want to share with people, like that struck you in your time that you think is going to be fun and things for them to consider as they hear and learn more about Nobody Studios?
We haven't cracked the surface yet. So I think it's just important to share that, folks are just seeing the tip of the iceberg. These short snippets and the hints and glimpses that we're giving folks of the behind the scenes process. This is just the beginning. And fortunately for the folks that are involved now, this is the best opportunity to join. And unfortunately for those that aren't joining us at the moment, this opportunity won't exist again. So I just want to make sure that, this is us telling you that this is the opportunity. Join the journey now while you have the opportunity to do so. And it's going to be a wild ride. I look forward to working with all of you in some capacity or another. Thanks for your time today.
Right on. And as I couldn't leave it any better than that. And a nice shout out from Phil to say more Kyle Kane content. Well, you want to see that? Get onto all our social channels. He's the master of ceremonies. Thank you very much, Kyle, for being on the show today. Great to have you. And let's keep kicking ass.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.